Okay, so let me tell you about this guy, Marcus Miller. He'd always pictured a quiet life by the water. After decades grinding away as an engineer in the city, he finally snagged this perfect spot, serene riverfront property, right on the edge of a peaceful suburban neighborhood. It was exactly what he wanted for retirement. Fish in the morning, read on the dock, just escape the city noise. He really took pride in the place, kept the lawn immaculate, planted flowers along the riverbank. It was his sanctuary. Marcus was friendly with the neighbors, but kept his distance mostly. Crucially, he never joined the local HOA that ran the subdivision next door. His property, while right next to theirs, was legally separate. That independence was a big reason he bought it. No dealing with rigid rules or nosy board members. Little did he know, that very independence would put him right in the crosshairs of the HOA's most notorious member, Karen Peterson, his next-door neighbor. Karen was something else. Known throughout the community as the self-appointed HOA rule enforcer, taking her job way too seriously. Nitpicking about paint colors, garden gnomes, you name it. She carried herself with this air of authority, always reminding people she was on the HOA board. Marcus had only exchanged polite waves with her, but he'd heard the stories. Overbearing was putting it mildly. So, one sunny spring morning, Marcus gets back from a 2-week trip visiting his daughter and grandkids. Pulls into his driveway, ready to relax. But stepping out of the car, he sees something bizarre. Just past the hedge marking his property line, there's a big concrete foundation poured right into the ground. Steel beams sticking up, looking like the skeleton of a garage. Marcus froze, suitcase dropping from his hand. Had to be a mistake, right? Contractor built on the wrong lot. He walked closer, picking his way through gravel and tools scattered everywhere. The garage frame stood right there, smack in the middle of his river view, totally ruining the natural beauty he loved. Confusion turned to anger. Who did this? Why? He spotted a temporary construction sign nearby with a local contractor's name. Lumber piled up, nails, insulation. This project was well underway. Marcus went straight inside, grabbed his phone, and called the contractor. After a brief hold, a guy named Steve came on. "Hi, this is Steve." "Steve, this is Marcus Miller," Marcus said, keeping his voice calm but firm. "I own the riverfront property where your team is building. Can you explain why there's a garage going up on my land?" Pause on the other end. Steve sounded confused. "Think you got the wrong site. We're working on a project for the HOA. Approved structure." Marcus's chest tightened. "The HOA? I'm not even in the HOA. This is my private property." Steve sounded genuinely surprised now. "Hold on, let me check." Papers shuffled. Work order says the lot was approved by Karen Peterson. "You sure this isn't part of the HOA?" Marcus clenched his jaw. "Absolutely sure. I have the deeds." "Stop the work immediately. I'll be talking to this Karen Peterson." Steve stammered an apology, promised to look into it. But Marcus knew he had to act fast. He hung up and marched straight over to Karen's house, 2 doors down. Perfect lawn, pristine white fence, looked like a magazine cover. He rang the bell. Karen opened the door, a smug look on her face like she'd been expecting him. "Marcus," she said, sickeningly sweet. "What a surprise. Can I help you?" Marcus didn't waste time. "Karen, there's a garage being built on my property. The contractor said you approved it. Explain." Her smile didn't budge. "Oh, that. Yes. The HOA needed extra storage space. Your land was the perfect spot, practically unused, enhances community resources. Assumed you wouldn't mind." "You assumed wrong," Marcus said, his voice rising. "That's my property. You had no right." Her demeanor iced over. "Marcus, the HOA has the authority to benefit the neighborhood. Your property is adjacent. The bylaws allow flexibility. Besides, the garage will be an asset." Marcus stared at her, incredulous. "I'm not in the HOA. Your bylaws don't apply? You know that." She crossed her arms. "I think you'll find the situation is more complicated. But if you're going to make a fuss, maybe we should discuss this with the board." He'd had enough. "This isn't up for discussion, Karen. Stop the construction. If you don't, I'm taking legal action." She raised an eyebrow, totally unimpressed. "Do what you feel you need to, Marcus. But I wouldn't recommend burning bridges. We're just trying to improve the neighborhood." Marcus turned and walked away, seething. This wasn't just overstepping. This felt calculated. He couldn't shake the feeling this was just the beginning. Back home, He started digging out documents, deed, boundary maps, anything related to the HOA. He drafted a formal cease and desist letter. He knew this fight wouldn't be easy. Karen was the type to dig in her heels. As the sun set over the river, the half-built garage silhouetted against the sky, Marcus felt a grim determination. This was his sanctuary, and he'd fight to keep it that way. The next morning, Marcus woke up ready for battle. He'd spent half the night reviewing his property documents and researching property law. He knew Karen Peterson had crossed a line, building on his land without permission. That's trespassing, plain and simple. First stop, the city planning office. The clerk, a young guy with thick glasses, was helpful. Marcus explained the situation, HOA building on his private land without consent. The clerk frowned. That's highly unusual. Any construction needs permits, even HOA projects. Let me check. He typed away, then shook his head. No permits filed for that address. If construction's happening, it's unauthorized. Bingo. Confirmation. But it just made Marcus angrier. What can I do? He asked. The clerk handed him a pamphlet. File a complaint with our enforcement division. They'll investigate, issue a stop work order if necessary. Marcus filled out the form right then and there, detailing everything. The contractor, Karen's dismissive attitude. Next stop, his lawyer's office. He'd used Mark Jennings when he bought the place. Mark was a sharp, no-nonsense real estate attorney. Marcus laid out the whole story, showed him the photos, the documents. Mark leaned back, studying everything. Textbook property encroachment, he said finally. Karen and the HOA have zero legal authority over your land. The lack of permits makes their case even weaker. So what are my options? Marcus asked. Mark outlined the plan. First, a formal cease and desist letter from my office. Warns them to stop immediately. If they ignore it, we file a lawsuit. Seek an injunction to halt construction, force removal of the garage. And, Mark added, we demand compensation for damages. He gave Marcus a knowing look. Karen sounds like the type who thinks she's above the law. Be prepared for a fight. People like her rarely back down easily. Marcus agreed. Leaving Mark's office, he felt a bit better. He had a plan, legal backup, but Karen wasn't waiting around. That afternoon, watering his flowers, Marcus saw her at the edge of her property, talking loudly on her phone, clearly meant for him to overhear. Completely unreasonable. Thinks he owns the whole riverfront. I'll handle it. Classic Karen. Later that evening, a flyer in his mailbox. Addressed to all neighbors. Signed by Karen. Accusing Marcus of being uncooperative anti-community. Painting herself as the victim, claiming his refusal to allow the illegal garage was hurting the neighborhood. Marcus crumpled it up, furious. She wasn't just trespassing. She was trying to turn the community against him. The next day, Marcus got a call from Steve, the contractor. Sounded nervous. Mr. Miller, just letting you know, we paused work for now. Karen told us everything was approved, but after you called, I did some digging. Looks like there's no permit. Don't want my team in legal trouble. Thanks, Steve, Marcus said, appreciating the call but knowing it wasn't over. But the damage is done. I'm pursuing this legally. Understood, Steve replied. Let me know if you need anything from us. With the contractor pausing, Marcus hoped Karen would finally see reason. Nope. She doubled down. Started circulating a petition among HOA members, claiming the garage was necessary, accusing Marcus of being a selfish outsider. Meanwhile, Mark filed the official cease and desist letter, sent copies to Karen and the entire HOA board. It detailed the legal violations, demanded construction stop immediately. Karen refused to accept the certified mail in person. They had to leave it at her door. Predictably, she ignored it, even hired another contractor to clear debris from the illegal construction site. Finally, the city enforcement division sent an inspector. Stern woman named Laura. She arrived unannounced, started taking measurements, photos. Marcus watched from his porch as Karen came out, all fake smiles. Can I help you? Karen asked sweetly. Laura didn't mince words. Investigating an unauthorized construction complaint. Are you responsible for this? Karen's smile faltered. Well, the HOA approved it. Community project? Laura raised an eyebrow. No permits on file. And the structure encroaches on land outside the HOA. Serious violation. Karen tried to argue, claimed she thought it was HOA land. Laura wasn't having it. Halt all work immediately, she said firmly, handing Karen a written violation notice. This case is being referred to our legal department. Karen retreated into her house, visibly flustered. Marcus felt a small victory. The city was finally involved. But even with the stop work order, Karen didn't apologize, didn't acknowledge wrongdoing. She kept bad-mouthing Marcus to neighbors. Some bought her story, giving Marcus the cold shoulder. Others, thankfully, saw through it and quietly offered support, admiring his courage for standing up to her. The situation was escalating. Karen's defiance, Marcus's resolve, it was heading for a full-blown legal battle, one that would decide the fate of his Riverfront sanctuary. The day of the court hearing felt heavy. Weeks of back and forth, legal filings, neighborly tension, it all came down to this. Marcus had spent countless hours with Mark, prepping, gathering every scrap of evidence. This wasn't just about a garage anymore. It was about defending his property rights against Karen Peterson's blatant power grab. He arrived at the courthouse early, folder clutched tight, deeds, surveys, photos, the cease and desist letters Karen ignored. Mark met him in the lobby, radiating calm confidence. "Ready, Marcus?" "As I'll ever be," Marcus replied, trying to mask the knot in his stomach. Inside, Karen was already there with her lawyer, Richard Evans, known for his aggressive style. Karen looked composed, almost smug, like she truly believed her HOA status made her untouchable. Judge Patricia Collins entered, no-nonsense demeanor, called the court to order. Mark presented Marcus's case first. Clear, concise, factual. He laid out the timeline, Marcus discovering the illegal construction, Karen's dismissive attitude, the lack of permits, the clear property boundaries proving encroachment. He emphasized the violation of Marcus's rights, the stress, the damages. Mark called witnesses. Laura, the city inspector, testified about the lack of permits and the confirmed encroachment. Steve, the first contractor, explained how Karen had hired him under false pretenses, claiming she had all approvals. His testimony highlighted her deception. When it was the defense's turn, Richard Evans went on the attack. He tried to paint Karen as a dedicated community leader, acting in good faith, maybe slightly misguided but not malicious. He argued the HOA bylaws gave her broad authority for community benefit projects. He pulled out that outdated, unclear neighborhood map again, trying to imply Marcus's property might somehow be under HOA influence. Mark dismantled their arguments easily. He presented the official, certified county map clearly excluding Marcus's property. He pointed out the bylaws Evans cited didn't grant the power to build on private, non-HOA land without consent. "Mr. Evans," Mark said calmly, "your client's claim rests on an inaccurate map and a misinterpretation of bylaws that don't apply here. Are you suggesting these outweigh official county records and established property law?" Evans had to concede the point. Then Karen took the stand. Defiant, defensive. Insisted she was trying to improve the neighborhood, claimed she assumed Marcus wouldn't mind the garage. Mark's cross-examination was sharp. "You assumed, Ms. Peterson? Did you ever ask Mr. Miller for permission?" "No, but I thought it was implied." Karen stammered. "Implied by whom?" Mark interrupted. "Mr. Miller wasn't consulted. He didn't agree. Isn't it true you acted unilaterally, disregarding his rights?" Karen flushed. "I was trying to do something good." Mark pressed on. "And yet, you ignored a cease and desist letter? Continued construction after a city stop work order? Spread misinformation about Mr. Miller to neighbors? Is that also doing good for the community?" Karen had no real answers. Her lawyer quickly ended her testimony. After closing arguments, Judge Collins took a brief recess. Waiting for the verdict felt like an eternity. Marcus sat there, heart pounding, Mark giving him a reassuring nod. When Judge Collins returned, her ruling was swift and decisive. She found entirely in Marcus's favor. Karen Peterson had no legal authority to authorize construction on his property. The encroachment was illegal. The lack of permits was illegal. Her actions constituted trespassing and harassment. She ordered the immediate removal of the partially built garage, with Karen Peterson and the HOA bearing all demolition costs. She ordered them to cover Marcus's legal fees, and she imposed hefty fines for the zoning and permit violations. "Ms. Peterson," Judge Collins said sternly, looking directly at Karen, "your actions demonstrate a blatant disregard for property rights and local regulations. This court will not tolerate such behavior. Let this serve as a reminder that no one, not even an HOA board member, is above the law." Karen's face was a mask of fury and humiliation. Marcus felt an overwhelming wave of relief wash over him. Justice. Finally. As the courtroom emptied, Mark clapped him on the shoulder. "Congratulations, Marcus. You stood your ground. You won." Leaving the courthouse, Marcus couldn't resist one last glance at Karen, huddled with her lawyer, gesturing angrily. Her reign of petty tyranny was over. It was more than just a legal victory. It felt like a vindication, a reclaiming of his peace. Winning in court felt incredible, but Marcus knew the fight wasn't really over until that half-built garage monstrosity was gone from his river view. The judge's ruling was clear. Karen and the HOA had to remove it at their expense. But trusting Karen to do the right thing? Not a chance. Mark, his lawyer, advised filing a request with the city's enforcement office for oversight of the demolition. Good call. Marcus wanted this done right and fast. Within days, a city inspector was on site, making sure the demolition crew Karen, grudgingly hired, followed the court order precisely. Marcus watched from his porch as they started tearing down the steel beams, jackhammering the concrete foundation. It was noisy, messy work, but every chunk of concrete removed felt like a weight lifting off his shoulders. Karen couldn't resist making appearances, of course. She'd pace along her property line, glaring, sometimes shouting things like, "Hope you're happy," ruining a community project. Marcus just ignored her. Her anger was her problem now, not his. Silence was his best weapon against her provocations. Once the garage frame was gone, the land underneath was a mess. Torn-up grass, compacted soil, debris everywhere. The court order included restoration, so Marcus met with the landscaping company Karen hired, walking them through exactly how he wanted his property put back together. Over the next few weeks, they worked diligently, replanted grass, leveled the soil, repaired the damage near the riverbank. Slowly, painstakingly, his beautiful, unobstructed riverfront view returned. Seeing it pristine again, the way it was supposed to be, filled Marcus with this quiet sense of gratitude and relief. The fallout for Karen and the HOA was pretty intense. Her reputation was shot. The court fines, plus the demolition and restoration costs, hit the HOA budget hard. Facing criticism from angry members who hadn't been consulted and were now footing the bill for her illegal actions, Karen eventually resigned from the board in disgrace. Good riddance. Marcus didn't gloat, but he couldn't deny the satisfaction of seeing accountability finally served. As life settled back into its peaceful rhythm, Marcus took steps to secure his property for the future. Hired a surveyor to clearly remark his property lines with visible stakes. Put up a modest, tasteful fence along the boundary, not out of spite, just for clarity and peace of mind. Added a couple more security cameras too. The whole ordeal had taught him the importance of vigilance. You can believe in the best of people, but you gotta protect your boundaries, literally and figuratively. One afternoon, fishing on his dock, a neighbor, Linda, walked over. She'd been one of the few who openly supported him during the whole mess. She brought over a basket of homemade cookies. "Hi, Marcus," she said, smiling warmly. "Just wanted to say thank you. What you did, standing up to Karen, it inspired a lot of us. She pushed people around for years, and nobody had the courage to fight back. You showed us we don't have to just take it." Marcus smiled, genuinely touched. "Thanks, Linda. I didn't really set out to inspire anyone. Just wanted to protect my home. But I'm glad if it made a difference." They chatted for a bit, and as Linda left, Marcus felt this renewed sense of connection to the community, the real community, the neighbors who valued fairness and respect. The ordeal hadn't isolated him. It had strangely strengthened those bonds. Months later, the whole nightmare felt like a distant memory. Marcus's days were back to being filled with the simple things he loved: fishing, gardening, reading on the porch. The riverfront property, fully restored, seemed even more beautiful now, a symbol of resilience. Occasionally, he'd see Karen driving by. No eye contact anymore. She avoided him completely. He didn't hold a grudge. He'd moved on. He hoped maybe, eventually, she'd learn something from it all. Looking back, Marcus felt proud. He'd faced down arrogance and abuse of power, navigated a complex legal system, and won. The fight was worth it, not just for his land, but for the principle. As the sun set over the river, painting the water gold and orange, Marcus sat on his dock, fishing rod in hand, completely at peace. His sanctuary was defended, justice was served, and that felt like the best kind of victory.